We're back with a different player, our tactical master, Tai. Hello, Tai, how are you?
Doing good.
Feeling sharp for today's competition? Tactical
I
competition?
will be by the time today's competition rolls around. I have some waking up to do
Okay,
still, but
okay. So what's the plan? Another, like, taking a nap just before the main event, or
food and playing with the baby.
playing with the baby? Okay, so this is a training method I've never heard of, but I guess since I don't have a baby, maybe this is why I've never used it. I guess doing that with other people's babies is probably not the best way to do this. So okay,
Probably less recommended.
less recommended, controversial at least. Okay, good. I will be joining that session for a bit, like half an hour or so, maybe an hour, but I'm not sure if we're going to see each other. I'm not sure what the format is going to be. In any case, similarly to Set, you will have to earn your right to get to analysis board. So there will be a warm-up without the
Okay.
board. Without the board. Actually, two puzzles for you. You were last time we were doing great with that, so I think you're going to handle that very easily. First task will be our favorite traveling exercise. So your knight is on, let's say, a2. It's supposed to go to h8 and then to h1.
Okay.
No enemies, no hostile pieces, neutral pieces, no obstacles, nothing. A2, H8, then A1. Ready whenever you are.
I'm thinking. Let's see. Okay, from A2, I can go to C3, E4, G5, F7, and then H8.
Okay, now to H1. From H8.
Recalculating at H8.
Okay.
Had to get there first, so fastest path was all I stopped.
base 1 occupied. Going to base 2. Is it intuitive to go to H1?
Not completely. I did follow along when you had Seth go E1 to E8, and it's almost a similar path, except not having
Issues with getting to the
an I
destination?
file takes away
Right.
some of the ways to do it. The
True.
hopping back and forth across the
Mm-hmm.
file you start on is no longer an option, which shouldn't really change anything, but it's making me pause and double check my calculations before I say anything.
Okay.
But I should just be able to go like G6, E5, G4, F2, H1.
Sharp. Very good. You made it. I was expecting that. Therefore, I prepared something slightly more difficult. Hopefully not too
Yay.
difficult. This time, blindfold opening mistake. We did that last time. Everyone loved that, me included. So you will be imagining a sequence of moves. The last move... no, so chat is asking if you have an empty board in front of you. Do you?
I do not.
Okay.
I've also been, as I've been going to sleep, trying to solve the knight A1 to H8 with a queen in the middle of the board.
Ah, smart.
Which does in fact slow you down, I've confirmed.
Yes,
but I can't.
The queen is a pretty mighty piece, I have to admit.
You can do it in 8 hops, but not the 6 that you could do on an empty corner to corner board.
But was it that you cannot blunder the knight, or can you blunder? Can you?
Can't blunder the knight.
Can't blunder the knight. Okay.
So it takes a lot of squares away, and it's not easy to see them.
I think it's a
actually
very nice
failed 2 nights in a row to actually get to H8, though I made progress, and then I accidentally solved it while watching Magnus Nepo yesterday, because there was a board in front of me that had a completely different position, but it was still a board, and the second I saw squares,
And the
I thought
game was
about
so
knight.
boring that you decided to have a nice
No,
exercise.
but it was actually early in the game. I will before
Okay.
for the record.
Okay, I think it's a very nice exercise, and you actually don't need a board with you. So if someone is boring you with the conversation, or you're in the elevator and you don't feel like small talk, you can just try solving some exercises blindfold. It's really good. You're not wasting your
My
time.
wife's gonna watch this stream and then be like, "Honey, are you doing night hops again?"
Yeah, that may affect your relationship with your family. So you need to be discreet a little bit, like try to maintain the conversation, which will make the task even more difficult, and still do the night hops. Yeah, exactly. Training is supposed to be difficult. Good. So a sequence of moves, you will be playing black, and there will be a mistake made by white at the end, and you're supposed to simply find a winning continuation or a continuation which gives you an advantage. Ready? Shall we start?
Let's try.
Okay. So white goes d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, knight b to d2, e6, a3, c5, pawn captures c5, bishop captures c5, and white plays b4, question mark.
Queen a4 check.
Wait, what? How is that even possible?
Didn't I play e6?
You did play e6, yes. With black, you did play e6. But you're playing black, so queen a4.
Oh, I'm black. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Right. Oh. These are harder for me with black, for the record, that I've
okay.
discovered.
I'm glad about that,
black,
because I'm trying to make it difficult, so it's good information.
I appreciate that. With black, I do a lot of the coordinate flipping that I mostly don't do when I have white.
Mm-hmm.
I've discovered as I try to solve
Okay,
these.
so we will just be doing for black, just for the sake of making it difficult.
Yeah, I can find ones with white to do when on my own when I need something easy and relaxing.
Exactly. When you're running out of hopping exercises with your when on a walk with a family. Oh, you're black, so you cannot really play queen a4. If anything, queen a5. So my follow-up question is queen a5 a check?
No.
Why?
Because there's a pawn on b4 that would take my queen.
Very good. So I'm assuming
queen a4 if I could put it there also isn't a check because I'm black.
Yep. That doesn't do much.
While we're at it.
So white's last move was b4, and now
right. So b4 did hit my bishop. Nothing seems loose except that rook on a1.
Well,
I don't have a
I'm not saying a word.
If I don't have that queen check pattern on the A file, not sure how to get at it. It's on F3 and F6.
I just love those exercises.
Knight on D2. Bishop on C5.
No worries, chat is also struggling,
If
so
the bishop, it's not the move, but it might be part of the later idea. I'm going to observe that the king doesn't have any squares, and so if the bishop took F2, the king would have to take. But it's too slow to do that and then try to bring in the knight. But maybe if I bring in the knight first, the fact that the king has no squares
one remark.
also carries
One remark. What do you mean by bringing the knight?
Bring the knight forward to either from F6 to somewhere that it attacks F2.
Which is?
Either G4 or E4.
Okay. But you know, whenever you're calculating a proper line, you need to play a specific move. So what I'm trying to say is that whenever you're calculating, you need to verbalize it properly. You cannot say like, I will sack there in the corner, he will recapture with his knight, and then I will move my queen forward. No, it has to be like the engine. Move, 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 move. Specific square. Bishop f2, king f2, knight e4, king e1, queen a5 check, or whatever it is. It really contributes to the precision of your calculation. Specific moves. Particular piece on a particular square. Otherwise, you may get a different line, even though you thought about, you know, something else.
Makes sense.
I know it's difficult, but it's the only way.
Yeah, and generally, when I use a shorthand like that, it's an intermediary step in my brain of trying to get to what the specific move is.
So you know what you're trying to find,
bring
but
knight
okay.
forward, attacking F2, meaning
okay, I get it.
Which might mean knight G4 or knight E4.
Okay.
Especially if it's an idea that I'm filing away for later in a line, because whether it's G4 or E4,
you just don't know yet.
Might depend if I don't necessarily think it's the move in this moment, although I'm actually starting to get interested in knight E4.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't worked it out yet. Because no, from E4, there's not a smothered mate threat, which was which was what I was hoping for. So does the bishop have to? Is it about F2 at all? I'm also choosing to verbalize a few of my thoughts just for
Okay.
chat's sake.
Ah, by the way, chat was asking what brand of yerba mate I'm drinking right now. I will try to show it to camera. It's not advertising. I'm not being paid for that, by the way. This is what it says. It's quite good, actually. Yeah, it should be visible right now. It says Buenos Aires. So pretty good. Everything is Spanish on the package. See, Tai is trying to do the scene from the Queen's Gambit where
Find the
the
moves on the ceiling. My
yeah,
ceiling is
finding
not as effective as Beth's. There's a lot less on mine.
no, but it's actually quite funny because chess players actually do that. Because ceiling or the wall, this is something totally empty. Nothing is distracting you. But we look weird, I know. That's why people are mocking us.
Nothing I'm looking at is quite working, and I
Remember,
now one.
it's tactics, so it has to
Yeah.
be forcing. I'm not, expecting you to develop a piece or slightly improve your position or
Right. The idea I've been stuck on is bishop and knight combos on f2, but my knight's not attacking f2 yet, and either of the two moves we named that bring it forward just hang the bishop, which is currently being attacked by the last move. And I can't find any follow-ups if bishop just takes the pawn now. I can bring the knight in to g4 with check, but I don't have any other pieces out to continue the attack, and I feel I don't see how that works.
calculation doesn't involve feelings. It's not supposed to involve feelings. You have to be brutal. You have to calculate till the end once you run out of forcing moves.
Bishop f2, king f2, knight g4, king back to e1, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Knight e3. Is that something now? What would I be doing on e3? Hitting the queen.
Right.
But if the queen moves to not c1, the knight still hits it. So, for example, queen knight e3, queen b1. I don't see anything at the end of that line other than an ambitious knight with no backup. And
Okay,
a
but
lost bishop.
what does white move? Where does white move? What does he play? Knight e3 is the last move.
I say I was looking at queen b1.
How?
Wait, the bishop never moved. The queen is trapped. Almost.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, the knight's on d2.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't anything on c2. The queen still is there. Is that pawn still there? No, that pawn. No, we pushed our c pawn, but they didn't push theirs. Oh, is the queen actually trapped in there? I thought the queen had the diagonal for some reason, but there's this pawn on c2.
Right, because
And a bishop
there's
on
a
c1. That does make knight e3 a lot better.
agreed. Okay, so king e1 self traps the knight, the queen, due to knight e3.
Okay, so back to that was for example, king e1. It wasn't
Yes.
forced.
So what other options does white have?
So bishop f2, king f2, knight g4. Not king e3 because that's covered. So king
Covered
g3.
Covered by what?
By the knight. Covered by the knight that was
Okay.
hopping there if it went back to e1.
Okay.
So king g3.
Mm.
Now, if we just go straight to the knight e3 move anyway, the queen does have one escape square with queen e1.
Mm.
But what can we do about that? That g4, king g3. Don't have a check. Knight e3, queen e1. Queen still doesn't have too many moves from there. Knight g or knight c2 forks the queen and rook.
Mm-hmm.
Queen f2, knight takes a1.
Yeah, I think queen f2 is not really expected because this is probably the no, exit road for the white king if needed. And if there's nothing better, I mean, a lazy approach would be to go for this position. If you have a knight c2 fork, it means that at the very worst you'll just get what, a rook and two pawns for two minor pieces with white's king very exposed. It has to be okay for black. It just has to. Even if white, so your knight on a1, even if it's going to be trapped or lost, right? It should still be fine. However, do you want me to terrorize you a little bit more or not? So after king g3, there is still a good forcing follow-up.
Yeah, it felt like I liked seeing that queen rook fork, but it didn't quite feel like enough.
Yeah, but you can consider it as a backup option. So if there's because at the end of the day, when you're calculating, you need to just evaluate, do I play this move or not? And with every single move being played on the board, the position will be clarified. So you know that at the very least you have that, but possibly there might be something stronger, but then you will get better vision of that position. So in practical sense, it's still good to play that move, because you know that once the position clarifies, maybe there will be something better. But at least you have a small advantage. At least. Maybe more.
My wife just pinged me. She needs me for 5 minutes. Can I take
Sure.
5 and think about what else to do about King G3?
Okay, absolutely. So chat, there is a better way. I think there is a better move. There's a better continuation. With the king on g3, we don't even need to play knight e3 as far as I can tell. We can play knight e3, that's fine, but there's something even stronger than that. There should be something stronger. I'm not sure how forcing this is, but there is a nice continuation there. Oh, we have another
gonna try
guest.
to help us figure out what to do.
Good.
Till Mama comes and takes him back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking, Ben, at if we just played a knight g4 check and the king came to g3. We've sacked our bishop on f2 already.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what stronger ideas might we have? And the natural continuation that's not in a concrete form that I'm trying to visualize and explore would be to bring the queen in some way.
Okay.
Since we have push d6.
Right.
There is a diagonal.
What is white? If this was white to move right now, what would this be? I will add those moves so that people who are joining can still like add text. So if white was on move right now, what would his move be? Of course black is on the move, but we need to realize what the threat is.
The king could take our knight.
Yep.
On g4.
Considering you've already sacked one piece, it's maybe quite important.
Because the idea of bringing if there was an idea around bringing in the queen to concrete squares to be named later, it would involve the queen protecting the knight and supporting it in this effort to catch this king out there, not giving up the knight. And so legal queen moves, queen d7 wouldn't do that. Queen e7, I mean. Well, queen b7 wouldn't either, but I was looking at the diagonals come in.
Yeah.
Queen f6 wouldn't defend the knight, but queen g5 would defend the knight, but hang the queen to the knight on. And to the knight on f3. And queen h4 also doesn't get the queen on a safe square. So
no, it doesn't.
There's not a way to bring the queen in on this move while defending the knight. The knight doesn't have checks from g4 with the king on next to it on g3. There could be a slower move like h5 defending the knight and bringing more pressure towards the king, but we're not immediately threatening h6 check because that would just hang the knight again.
Wait, if you're playing h5, you're
Or
saying
h4,
you're...
h3. I mean, I reversed the coordinates because I'm black again.
Okay, so for h5, h3, then what?
h4 is what I was trying to say, that h5 doesn't immediately threaten h4 check, because if it, like if we could move twice in a row, would this be an idea type of approach? H5 defends the knight and brings some pressure in, but we're not immediately then threatening h4.
Okay, and if you were able to make 2 moves in a row, what would that be? I know you hate me already.
No, I love it. I just can't see it. I want it to be hard. It's no fun if you ask questions and I just answer them. Then we're just talking about things I already know. But it's hard.
It is.
Well calibrated. I just can't quite see how to get at that king on g3 in this position. Pretty sure I would on a board, but I don't.
Yep.
Don't quite have it up here.
So if you play h5, the problem is that white doesn't have a good move. What were you considering? h3 for white?
I looked at h4.
There's something... Yeah, h4 is okay, but...
Oh, we went for white.
h4 for white, okay. No, that loses on spot.
Yeah. No, I've been looking at h4 as my next move, potentially. I hadn't looked at a concrete response for white yet. So h5, h3 is something to look at.
Focus on the h4 move, because I think it's, if you spot, if you're not afraid of your knight being lost in a moment, you will be able to find the next move for you, which is essentially the threat you made with h5. Because h5, okay, it's protecting the knight, but what else is it doing?
It's opening up the rook.
Not really. No, introducing the rook will take time. You need something faster.
And it's threatening h4 check, defended by the queen.
You will not give checkmate with a knight and a pawn.
But
we need fixed assets coming there. Introducing more pieces? Does make sense?
h5 isn't giving me a way to bring in a bishop. Thanks for the help, Ben.
Yes, Ben's doing much better than you.
Yeah, for sure.
He doesn't need to solve those exercises anymore. So what are you threatening? You need more pieces. You need more friends to be invited to the party. H5, white goes H4. What piece can you introduce with a deadly effect? Bring those guys to the battle. Otherwise, knight is just, lonely troop on the field.
Wait. Pawns on e6 and d5, but that means something like bishop d6 is a move. What would I hit from there? That'd be an interesting place for it.
Chat is saying you will be dreaming about this position today.
I believe that, yes.
No, you need your queen to be introduced. If there's a king on g3, what can you do with the queen?
I mean, queen f6, queen
No,
d6.
Okay, queen d6.
Are squares it can come to.
Okay. What does queen d6 do? If only he had one of those green pills. If only he had one of those green pills, we wouldn't be worried about today's tactical event, right? Set and tie jointly occupying first place, able to solve every single puzzle existing on chess.com. It wasn't possible to determine who the actual winner is.
Wait, is that check? Does that hits g3?
Is that a check? Very good question. Is that a check? Because if this is a check, this is definitely your candidate, right?
There's nothing else on those intervening squares of that diagonal that is a check.
Right.
Okay, so that's probably worth looking at then.
Can white play bishop f4?
No, because the knight on d2.
Very good. So what can white play? Besides resigning, because it's a horrible position. But for the sake of exercise, we will insist on playing with white, despite no practical chances whatsoever. White's best chance right now is you making a illegal move, to be honest.
Which is very likely as long as I'm playing it up here.
50-50.
If white knows I'm blindfolded and knows my blindfold strength, white should play on. But
I think people generally don't resign in blindfold games, right? Or maybe at grandmaster level when you have those blindfold competitions they do, but it probably means they see even worse. You're very close to the solution. Very close.
King H.
Yes, he can go king h3. And if you find the next move, you earn the prize of the day, which is seeing the board.
I mean, then there's knight f2 check, but the queen is still on d1.
Yes, the queen is still in the
That's
yuan.
not checkmate.
Again, because I think what you just said, it's counter, like it doesn't make sense. Because if there is a queen on d1, dinosaur 1, and you said
D
knight
and f don't
f2,
see each other. Queen's
yeah.
okay. The queen's only still on. Queen
So
is still on d1, so there is knight f2 check.
the queen is, yeah, its position is actually irrelevant right now.
So if knight f2 check, does the king have legal moves? Is there a block? There's... Can't block a knight, so there's not a block.
Seth has the answer already, you know? With no help whatsoever. He said he found it instantly.
Makes sense. The queen's covering h2 and g3.
Mm-hmm.
King's on h3.
Is h4 a valid option?
No, there's a pawn there.
Is g4 a valid option?
No, the knight just came from there, so it hits there.
Can I take the knight?
That was why I thought the queen was a problem, but since it's on d1, it's not, so no.
Mm.
Because there's nothing else that could. The bishop is...
Which leads to a conclusion that...
I think this might be checkmate, but I'm still struggling to feel confident with that.
This might be checkmate. This might be checkmate.
I think it might be.
It is checkmate.
I think it is.
It is checkmate. Good. Do you want to see it on the board?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me invite you first.
Oh, I've been logged off for inactivity.
No, you were active. You were active. I can testify. I mean, I can still see Seth. I cannot see you on the live chat, so if you could just...
Yeah, let's go ahead. Log out. Log in.
Wow, I have so many options, but... Oh yeah, you're there. Right. Who should we choose this time? Okay, I've just invited you. Good. So the moves we were looking at were as such. No, there was no e3. Sorry. There was knight d2 e6. I was gonna
say, that move didn't look familiar.
Yeah. c5 takes. Bishop b4. A brave decision to go bishop f2, king f2, knight g4. Right. So I didn't ask you about king g1, but well, maybe I should have. But king g1 is basically refuted by queen b6. Game over.
Yeah.
So king e1, knight e3 traps the queen. You spotted that. And there's king g3. So apparently there are two moves. You could play knight e3. This is fine. And this is the practical move. And then I guess the follow-up will depend whether you want to go knight c2 or maybe still continue with the attack. But I like h5 the most because it's trapping the white king. And if you have a position like that, there just has to be something. And it's impossible to prevent either queen d6 or h4. Both moves are actually very strong. And this is something you missed, and chat I think mentioned that once or twice, that if there's h3, you can go queen d6 of course, but also there's h4, or after any other move there's also h4, king g4, and then e5, and all of a sudden the bishop gets into play. That was actually quite tricky, because recognizing that the bishop
doesn't just get into play. That
the,
is
the bishop gets involved in the game with on its
that
initial
is not
position.
a mating pattern. I feel like is in my
No, it's not. It never is.
database.
You just don't play. You don't play e5 checkmate on move 8. You just don't. It doesn't happen. So, but basically, if there's h4, so once you play h5, you can play queen d6 pretty much after any move white plays. So queen d6, king h3, knight f2. This was the position.
Yeah.
You weren't
That
sure
is a
if
fast
this is checkmate. Yeah. Pretty nice. Good, very good. I know it was difficult. I know we spent a lot of time on that, but I think this is, if there is a good training method, it's one of those. Okay, my main idea for us for today was to take a look at some strategic positions, since we've been discussing that some, like in the previous session, with slightly different positions this time, a couple of additional my favorite positions that I have in my collection. Okay. Let me just paste it real quick. And off we go. So this is something for black. This was played by the one and only Mikhail Botvinnik with black pieces. And yes, black is to move, and you need to find concept, or maybe calculate, or maybe find a good setup, or maybe, I don't know, do stuff. What would you do if this was a game? Now, just jokes aside, this is an exercise for strategy, so we will be looking at weaknesses, so weak pawns or squares. We will be looking at good exchanges, and we will not be looking at prophylaxis this time, because I think that whenever strategy is concerned, you should essentially think about those three aspects. So weaknesses, pieces, exchanging or improving, or isolating your opponent's pieces, and prophylaxis. Here we are talking about weak squares and issues connected with pieces. So question number 1, do you see any weak squares in white's position? Any weak pawns in white's position as well?
I'm drawn immediately to e4 and e3.
Right, very good observation. Whenever there's a backward pawn, here this is a pawn on e3, there's always a weak square right in front of it, by the definition of the backward pawn. So e3 and e4, whenever you see a backward pawn in your opponent's position, it always comes in a complex of two weaknesses. Agreed. So you know what the weakness is. Step number 2.
At this exact moment, white is defending e4 with 3 pieces. Bishop, knight, queen. But if we could reduce that number and fight for that square, that would be tempting. I'm drawn to a c4 idea to try to force that bishop away as one possibility.
Okay. What do you expect to happen?
potentially bishop f5, where if we wanted to focus on taking the bishop's control of e4 away, we could trade bishops, but then we're giving up our bishop pair also, so it's not strategic concepts in isolation.
No, it's actually a very good question. Do you want to give up the bishop pair for the sake of exchanging a light squared bishop, which is controlling the weakness? Very good question. I'm afraid that in chess, in order to get something, you need to give something. It's really difficult to just, grab a pawn after a pawn, a piece after a piece without giving your opponent anything. It's just an unfair.
I mean, if you're playing me in Blitz,
no,
then you
no,
can
no,
pretty
no.
much.
No, that would be unfair. And it's also impolite to do that. You just, if you see that you're crushing your opponent, you're just supposed to make a mistake so that he feels better.
Making a mistake, I'm an expert in.
No worries, you're not the only one.
But self-deprecation.
No, we're here to make mistakes. So, do you think such a trade would be beneficial for black or not?
I think that it would be, as long as we didn't introduce any additional weaknesses into our position along the way. I think we can make that concession if it's the only concession we make. But I'm a little worried that that specific line, c4, bishop f5, bishop takes, queen takes, is also a little ambitious with how far forward the c pawn is, and I'm worried about those DC pawns also becoming a weakness.
Okay. Something is weak only if it can be attacked. Can the pawn on d5 be attacked, like, sufficiently?
Sufficiently, I don't see any way to bring more than the knight that's already hitting it, and it's still defended by the f6 knight.
That's true. And also another very philosophical question: is the bishop pair so important right now? Is it really an asset?
Right now, I mean, if we're looking short term in the position as it is, it's not doing too much right now.
Okay, long term, do you expect the position to get so open your bishop pair will be important? What's the probability of getting a really a type of a position where the bishops will stand out from the crowd? So either a position which is open, or there are pawns placed on two flanks of the board, and you can actually attack those two flanks at the same time.
Probability of that happening gets lower if we do go with c4.
Yep, agreed. And you did go c4, so the bishop pair doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a bad bishop.
A position where we don't care about the bishop pair.
Yes.
Making that trade more favorable.
And the bishop pair, I mean, the light squared bishop, white's light squared bishop is clearly much stronger than black's light squared bishop.
Yeah.
So it's a beneficial exchange, even though you're inviting your opponent's queen to the potentially active spot. So f5. Okay, so let's assume the exchange takes place on f5. What's the follow-up? So white has queen on f5. What does black do next?
So my long-term design on that weak e4 square is to plop a knight there. But that's not the next move, because right now that knight, like I just said, is defending d5, which is hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So again, what was the goal? Never lose that initial question from sight. What was the purpose?
goal was weakening the defense of e4.
Yes. It's
Which
still a
is still
valid point. Can you visualize the position properly?
I believe I've got it.
Okay. So, what's the problem in occupying e4 square? Why, in this position, you cannot do that? What prevents you from doing that?
If in this position I play knight e4, white can play knight takes d5.
Okay. So, again, to rephrase that, what is preventing you from playing knight e4?
The knight on c3.
Yes. What can you do about it?
Bishop b4.
Yes. Simple as that. Why is it so strong? Because after all of those trades, bishop b4, we will be capturing on c3 no matter what, and we will be able to pull the knight on e4. This actually might be the trickiest part of the entire sequence, because at this point you might realize that f7 is still hanging. But this is the difference between the knight on e5 and the potential knight on e4. We still have a move, f6 move at our disposal. Not right now, but after some preparation. But essentially, if you get this kind of a pawn structure, white cannot do anything. White doesn't have a single pawn break. White has no play, even though it looks like his position is active. It's an aesthetic position, but it's not a functional position. Because white's pieces will be kicked back. And as soon as that happens, black is just crushing white. Let me show you the continuation to prove my point. So, after bishop b4, white retreated with queen c2. Probably he was just unhappy with rook c1 or rook e2, because he realized that after these moves, actually knight e4 may even be an option. But even without that, the white king is just seriously exposed. So with rook d6, rook b6, queen a3 coming, this may be just too much. So white said, okay, I will just play queen c2. My knight is still a powerful piece on e5. But even if this didn't happen, we could easily play like take on c3. Of course, the attack on queen side is one of the ideas. But even without that, you can easily imagine something like rook f8, knight e4, and at some point f6. We're not really rushing anywhere. Those moves will be played. You just need to avoid simple tactical ideas like knight g6. But you have all the time in the world to prepare that. It will not escape. So queen c2 was played, rook d6, rook e2. There's no pin anymore, so bishop c3, pawn takes, knight e4. King a1, rook a6. Black is preparing rook a3. No counterplay whatsoever. Black is just crushing this. Rook c2, rook dd6.
Bring everything.
Bring everything. And there's hello raiders. We have Szachuś.pl, another Polish streamer, raiding us with 91. Hello raiders.
Hi,
hello. Thanks, Szachuś. I hope you don't mind. This is in English, but well, it is what it is. Still easier than Polish, I guess. So where were we? Rook d6, knight g4, rook g6, h3, h5. Irrelevant moves, really. But this is a perfect presentation of black's attacking potential. And after knight f3, there was even queen a3. with the exchange of the rooks coming, but this was just the rest was just kindergarten for Botvinnik. If anyone is interested in this game, this was Lilienthal, Botvinnik, Moscow 1945. Seth is actually proposing that we make this in Polish, blindfold.
Thanks, Seth.
to slightly increase the level of difficulty. But if you're solving blindfold puzzles in Polish, then in the tactical event you will be a miracle maker. You can do anything then. There will be no limits for you. So this was again Lilienthal Botvinnik. I can maybe even paste a PGN of that. No, I cannot paste a PGN because I have a fragment of that. In any case, Moscow 1945 for all of those of you who is interested in this game, you will easily find it in the internet. So the initial idea, this was all about identifying the e4 square being very weak. So you need to remove every single defender of that square. Therefore, exchange of the bishops plus exchange of the dark squared bishop for the knight. So we actually got rid of the bishop pair. Phenomenal. Entirely. Because, as we said, the bishop pair doesn't matter at all in this position because it's a closed position. The pawns, it's unlikely to change in the future. And also, the bishops are strong in open positions or in positions where there are pawns placed on two flanks at the same time, where you can attack those pawns with the bishops, because bishops can attack in two directions, right? So here, it's really unlikely we will be using the full potential of the bishops, and therefore, we can safely just exchange them. It's counterintuitive because bishop pair, you're expecting this to be an asset. It's not, because of the character of the position. Okay, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, this may actually be a bit, maybe even easier. We'll see. Okay, this is it. We have white to move. This was played by another world champion, Vasil Smyslov, a master of strategy and games and technique. And basically, if you're a world champion, you're Superman. So he was one of those guys. White to move.
One of those world champions who was bad at chess.
Yeah, he wasn't one of those. No. Oh, he was decent. He knew some tricks. He knew every single opening trap. Good. White to move. What do you think? How we should approach this position? And deliver checkmate is not an answer. I can already tell you that.
Declare mate in 39.
Actually, what was the rule? Because I know that if you declared checkmate in whatever the number of the moves was, and you didn't, you were supposed to resign, right? Because it was not honorable to declare checkmate and not give it. It just meant that you didn't calculate it properly. But what if you gave checkmate earlier? So if you declare checkmate in 39 and you give it in move, I don't know, in 35 moves. It's still okay, right? It works.
I think that's fine. You just claim that there was a stronger defense that we
right
in a different
you could still claim that if your opponent played better, you would give it in 39.
Plenty of mate in 4 positions have if a mate on move 2 in one of the sidelines. So
that's true. Yeah,
clearly you could say it was one of those.
Yeah.
So also,
I think
there's a weak pawn
39
and a weak square
39 is a pretty safe bet. 39 from this position. Yeah, you were saying a weak square on d5 and a backward pawn on d6. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Also, hanging bishop on d4, so I do have to address that with move 1.
Absolutely.
In some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a couple of observations. We all know at least something. It's a good start. Question number 1. Trade on e5. Retreat. Some kind of intermezzo. So in between move.
I don't like trading on e5. It cleans up black's weakness of the backward pawn, and now we have an isolated e-pawn instead.
So you don't like it?
I do not like it.
Okay. I forgot to change the... Chat thought it's actually black to move because that's what I indicated last time. No. With black to move, I think it's pretty easy. we want to get such positions, but unfortunately, no. In my training sessions, you don't get such positions.
300 level tactics puzzles, black to move.
It's a good warm up, and it's good to sometimes go back to those easy positions, but there is a certain limit. Like, you don't want to go below a certain level. Okay, so if you're not trading this, then what's the move?
I don't see anything other than bishop e3 to save the bishop.
In practical terms, in practical terms, there is only one thing you should check. So first of all, if you just approach this position in a game, obviously you probably need to start with a calculation, short calculation. If you realize this typical tactical pattern in this kind of a Sicilian, so f takes e5, d takes e5, queen g3. There's a pin on the pawn on e5, so you are actually asking some difficult questions. Still, this is not a good move for white right now. Do you know why? I mean, it's not that it's blundering anything, but it's also not winning. You might get an impression that it's winning something, but it's actually not. So how does black defend in this position?
Looking at either bishop d6 or knight d7.
Oh, if you're if you play a move like that, believe me, you will be crushed. Knight d7 is way too passive. Knight d7 is an invitation for knight d5, which looks like pretty much a Sicilian dream for white. And bishop d6, doesn't it run into rook takes f6? Or knight takes b5?
Yes, it does.
Not takes, just knight b5. With takes, following up. Next episode. No, we're looking at something, more than that. Something extra. You're getting a lot of assistance, by the way. First there was Ben, and now your dog with his tail. Yes. SOS signals. Make sure you don't get banned from the competition. Hi Ben, please blink once if it's bishop d6, blink twice if it's knight d7. No, it's something else. Chat already has it.
I'm looking at bishop c5. Is another.
Yep. Yeah, this is the typical reaction in this position. Bishop c5, queen e5 is a phenomenal blunder because the bishop will be pinned at the end of the day.
Right.
So bishop c5 seems to be the only move, and after queen takes c5, check, we are buying ourselves enough time to survive this position. And right now, honestly, I'm not sure if king h8 or queen e7, because there is rook takes f6. Quite a huge threat right now. But if you manage to consolidate your position this way, you should have a normal position. The bishop will ultimately be developed, so it should be fine. I'm assuming king h8 may actually be a mistake due to this thematic sacrifice. So this may actually be quite dangerous, because the rook is coming, the knight is coming. It might be too much. So potentially queen e7 just, saves everything. So this is the calculation you should probably start with. And you realize it's not the idea. If bishop d6, rook f6, e takes d4, yes. This is also a very good point set. I guess rook takes d6, then d takes c3, right? And there's probably, I don't know, b takes c3. But there's not so much there. So, but in any case, we're doing a strategic exercise right now. So bishop e3 is the response. And what's the... like after bishop e3, the position changes its character, right? We're no longer talking about some proper calculation. We might actually start looking into those weaknesses you identified. So the pawn on d6 and the knight and the square d5 square. So this is the observation. The question number 2 is how do you actually exploit those weaknesses you managed to identify? So white will play bishop e3, and what will be the follow-up? Like ideal setup for white, or ideal sequence of events for white.
So if we can plant a knight on d5, that'd be great at some point, which would involve getting their knight away from it first. I think I don't think we want to just.
Okay, how is that achieved?
There might be a plan like f5, bishop g5.
Okay. Okay, let's assume after bishop e3, white goes bishop e6.
If black goes bishop e6, then there's definitely a plan like f5.
Bishop c4.
Trying not to just automatically repeat the theme of the last exercise in a slightly different position without double checking. The instinct after the last one is to immediately say bishop takes c4 must be right. And it might be, but
we are growing good habits, so yeah, but you want to be, you just want to have a good answer, of course. Good,
so,
good.
Double checking that there's not something different in this position that changes what made it good last time. Bishop e3, bishop e6, f5, bishop c4. But I think bishop c4, c4, and bishop g5 still looks like a nice way to try to remove that knight, and that leaves the e-pawn comfortably defended.
Yes, this is what you're supposed to play. And you can... I think you should do this very fast. This is nothing to, don't overcomplicate that. f5 is indeed a very strong move. And actually, bishop c4 is a huge mistake. Positionally, it's just a bad concept. Black is probably supposed to retreat to d7 so that at least one piece can still control this d5 square. Otherwise, it will be a very difficult position. And as a matter of fact, not taking on f4 is already a huge mistake. Black should take it, and now play bishop e6, because right now there is no f5. And this is actually a typical Scheveningen position, or however you pronounce that. Yes,
what happens if on e takes f4 was what slowed me down on bishop e3 after I decided I didn't like the pawn exchange. Though granted, I decided I didn't like the pawn exchange without a full proper calculation. But in the original position, the reason I was hesitating on the bishop e3 retreat was because I got stuck a little while on whether there was a way to try to avoid this, or whether I should try to avoid this or not.
Right, but you know,
But then I realized there was no real alternative.
There's no real alternative. I mean, the only alternative is you taking on e5 voluntarily. The problem is that if you do that, like the scope of the bishop on e7 increases, and there is, as we managed to find out, there is no tactical follow-up. So queen g3 doesn't really lead to anything. So bishop e3 seems to be much stronger.
Yeah.
And I mentioned bishop e6 because this is the game continuation. This is how the game went. f5, bishop c4, queen c4, bishop g5. This is already a huge positional advantage for white. You don't need to know more. You don't need to calculate further. If you see a position like that with your knight jumping to d5, you basically have a huge advantage. In computer terms, this will probably be something like plus, I don't know, 1.5, or whatever it is. Black went rook e8, bishop f6, and the fact that knight d5 is even possible right now proves how strong how good this position is. So without wasting a single tempo on protection, on protecting the pawn on c2, white just played a knight d5 immediately. Why? Because after knight d5, if black goes queen c2, there will be just, the initiative will be just too strong. Rook probably infiltrating on the 7th rank, maybe knight f6, queen g3 coming. It's just too much. Not to mention that there is a fork, but actually I don't think you should go for the fork, because probably this knight on d5 is even stronger than one of the rooks, because it's a... I consider this to be not really a knight, it's an octopus. You cannot drive it away. Its tentacles control the entire board. Such a knight is just way too strong for this
love
position.
To sacrifice in exchange to get rid of it.
Exactly, and then his position will be quite solid actually. So for the sake of time efficiency, I will just say that this is after knight d5, black played bishop d8. There was c3, and black didn't get any kind of counterplay. White just killed the black king on the king side. That's it. Wait, what's going on? Ah, we have a sub. Thanks a lot. Yeah, the sound was so strange that I was worried about my computer actually. Good. So this was Smyslov against Rudakovsky. It was played in 1945. Tai, you will get the PGN after the session. Chat, Google it. You'll find it. Okay.
Chessgames.com.
Yeah. So you know how Smyslov is pronounced, so you'll get it. We'll get there. Okay. Do you want a really difficult strategic position?
Yeah.
The only answer is yes. This is actually Smyslov against Rashevsky. I don't know which year that was, but this is a position that really impressed me. I will not be surprised if this is going to be our last position for today. The floor is yours. White is to move, and you need to find a way for white to proceed from this position.
Well, we're not giving up a bishop. We're not giving up our bishop pair in order to control a weak square with the knight this time. That much I know.
Zip. I'm not saying a word. Yeah, because bishop e6 improves the control of d5 square. Yeah.
Well, because we don't have a knight to control it with is is all I'm getting at.
Fair point. Fair point. Good
Doesn't mean
observation.
we're not giving up a bishop pair potentially, but we're not doing it with the purpose of controlling a weak square with a knight.
Mhm.
That's how much I know.
Yep. When I first saw this position and the solution, I actually managed to solve this one, but it made me realize how little I knew about chess strategy. Not that I'm anticipating the same result. No worries. I didn't
I
meant to say
already
anything
know
like
how
that.
little I know about chess strategy.
So what are we looking at? Any ideas? Any concepts?
um, it was flippant at the
Celebrating the
beginning.
bishop pair?
I mean, there with the hint that this is something that made you question what you knew about chess strategy. Like I have some medicine. Why yet? Um, a way to do so in the immediate position might be something like bishop e6, but I have entirely like problem solving strategy, external context clues pointing me at that, not anything from the chessboard telling me to look at it.
Mm.
I was obviously being flippant at the very beginning when I said our goal isn't to put a knight on d5 times since we don't have a knight, but but also without that being our goal, I'm struggling with what else to do around black's
Again,
backwards d pawn.
chess is all about, I mean, besides calculating, chess is about asking yourself good questions. And we're talking about weaknesses. Weaknesses and pieces in
Yes.
specific context. Question number one: The one and only. Can you see any weaknesses on the board? This is your starting point. You may need to, change your thinking pattern later somewhere along the lines, but this is you need to start somewhere. Do you see any
D7 and
weaknesses?
D6 pawns are backwards.
B7? Saying that there's a backward pawn on the 7th rank, this will make the entire game. It will make the entire game very difficult. But I mean, I agree. From technical point of view, it is a backward pawn. However, a backward pawn is a pawn which is like the slowest from the gang. That is also not protected but by any of the pawns. You cannot expect a pawn on C8 or A8. So, kinda. So B7. Let's leave B7. It's okay. Anything else besides B7?
And then the backwards D6 pawn
Backward D6 pawn.
has, as we talked about, backwards D6 pawn comes with a hole on D5.
Agreed. What do we do with that? A weakness, whenever you find it, you need to try to exploit it. If you don't do that, your opponent may find a way to strengthen the weakness, remove the weakness, counterattack so that the weakness doesn't have an impact on the position anymore. How do we exploit the weakness of D6 pawn? Because about the D5 square, well, you cannot do much. You can put the bishop there, but it's not as strong as the knight.
Yeah.
So it's not really going to be about D5 square. Bishop D5 is an aesthetic move, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. It's the bad move I'd play in Bullet.
Yes, but in Bullet you need to play, those moves that don't necessarily require a lot of thinking, that just maybe don't make your position worse. So I wouldn't really criticize Bishop D5 in Bullet.
As a way of saying it's the very first move my brain's gonna point me at in this position, but I've kind of already dismissed it because you
can shake hands with Seth because he admitted that this was his original idea.
Yeah, it was the first move my brain suggested to me, but I never said it out loud because I agree it doesn't. I don't see any reason it does anything, so it was never one I.
It's definitely an aesthetic move, eye-pleasing move. However, not
it's kind of pretty.
It's not functional. It doesn't do much. If you correctly identify that D6 is weak, Bishop D5 actually interferes with the rook.
Yep.
Okay. We're focusing on D6. Sorry, but Seth offered another move and no, please don't.
One idea could be to bring the rook forward, and I haven't evaluated responses to these, but potentially to any of D2, D3, or D5, with the idea being Queen D1 to build pressure on the D pawn. But I'm not entirely convinced.
No, so there's like must use D5. Yeah, I see the edge to use D5. When you see D5, once you learn the concept of weaknesses, not using D5, this is no. It's so counterintuitive. No, we are focusing on D6. So you were proposing, what was it, to what? Because you mentioned some kind of
bringing the rook forward on the D file with the idea of Queen D1 to
Okay,
just double and try to build pressure on the d pawn is
so
an idea there, but I don't feel like it.
I will slightly help you. After the rook move, rook d2, rook d3, rook d5, whatever you want it to be, knight d7.
D7. Def-
With the mean intention of capturing the bishop, slash coming with the knight to f6, slash coming to c5 with the knight, and potentially at some point of the game consolidating with rook d8.
I didn't specifically see knight d7, but I was struggling with just an intuition that the rook move was probably too slow. Knight d7 validates that intuition, but I do need to actually see concrete reasons, as you keep emphasizing.
I'm afraid so. Yes, there is a very thin line between strategy and calculation. Like theoretically, you're looking at ideas, concepts. Where do I want my pieces? Which pieces I want to trade? Where are the weaknesses? But whenever you're looking at any line, you cannot lose tactics from your radar.
I am wishing I could play bishop c7 in
Why?
the future
Why?
to attack d6. There's
Right. Okay. But there's I'm afraid it's impossible right now. But
right
okay.
now.
Maybe this brings us to another very important question. Remember what you did, the first example, the first strategic example we did today, or even the second one. Once you realize what the weakness is, what was the follow up? First, you identify the weaknesses. Then
Remove the
uh-huh,
defenders of the weakness.
what is the defender of the weakness?
The queen on e7.
What can you do about it? If there is no queen, you simply collect the pawn on d6.
So I'm kind of back to looking at bishop e6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's if queen takes, of course, queen trade, win the pawn, double e,
Mm-hmm.
and there's double e pawns, and that's great. So bishop e6, f e6. But that still doesn't let my bishop get into c7. The queen's still on e7 there.
Okay, focus on the queen right now.
Yeah. Um, contemplating if there's ways to offer a queen trade. There's queen h4.
Hmm.
Not so sure that winning the d6 pawn at the end of a line with like queen h4, queen takes h4, g takes h4 would be enough because I've got my own new pawn weaknesses there. That
Right.
doesn't bode well for the end game.
Right, but you're not only winning that. There are other weaknesses in black's position. The consumption of the pawn on d6 is just the beginning. And it will take time for black to capture the pawn on h4. Because something is weak only if it can be attacked. It's an ugly pawn for sure, but it can still be used in one way or another. Even to play h5 to restrict black's,
Right.
you know, kingside expansion or whatever that is.
But that's also not to say that queen h4 forces a queen trade.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So what else can black play other than trading?
Queen d7 or queen f8 would still defend the d6 pawn for the moment.
Mm-hmm. And what's white's next move? We're still looking at the potential trade to get rid of the defender.
Then we can trade the bishop for the knight on e6, and even if pawn takes, we have queen d8.
Ah, wait. So you were saying queen h4 on move 1? Or after the trade? Because I thought you mentioned first the trade and then queen h4.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about. I was looking at the trade and queen h4 as kind of separate ideas on
Okay.
move 1.
If you play queen h4 on move 1, black goes knight g5.
Okay, but trade on e6 and then queen h4, having established that the pawn had to take back already. So
Yes, and then queen
bishop
h4.
e6, f takes e6, now queen h4.
Mm-hmm. And the queen moves somewhere. Let's assume f8, for example, so that it doesn't really go on the same file as the rook. Queen f8 makes perfect sense.
Queen f8, then we have queen d8.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing the queen trade.
Mm-hmm. Takes. White takes back with the bishop and knight c6, for example.
Bishop c7.
You made it. That's it. This is the idea. So once you realize that d6 is strong, the second question, how do I make black pay for it? So you actually need to remove the queen from protection of the pawn on d6. If you start with queen h4, this is a problem. This is a real problem because after knight g5, black is not only threatening knight f3 check, with of course dividend coming, but also there is knight d7 with maybe development, and black may get some kind of a chance to consolidate. So this is not really ideal. So instead it's much better to trade, and this is the first difficult move because actually you're getting rid of the bishop pair once more. You're improving black's pawn structure slightly because right now the pawn on d6 might be even improved somewhere along the lines further with d5. And now queen h4, voluntarily going for the position with doubled pawns just for the sake of exchanging the queens. And whatever black does, I mean, other than trade on h4, play queen d8 yourself. Actually, in this line we were analyzing after queen f8, potentially there is immediate bishop c7. Potentially. But queen d8 is fine as well. And this position is With this position on the board, yeah, black can still attack the bishop, but this pawn on d6 is lost anyway. Maybe there will be still some kind of technique required, but I assume that once you eliminate the pin, meaning king f1, king e1, you are ready to start your conversion exercise. Right? It should work exactly on time. King f1, knight a5, b3, not to allow knight c4, probably b5, and I guess king e2. The pawn on e5 drops if black doesn't go knight c6. If they go knight c6, then choose whatever you want. b3, where b3? Here b3. Yeah, I think so. No? Not b3? Ah, it was good. Okay. I thought David was challenging b3 and I got terrified that I missed something. So embarrassing in front of the boss. Okay, in any case, a lot to calculate to allow that pin. Really? I'm not sure. Because, I mean, said from a practical point of view, okay, a pin is not the end of the world. And also think about it this way: if you find one way to release the tension is to protect the rook, but also in order for black to be able to take advantage of the pin, he needs to find a way to attack the piece once more, the pinned piece once more. If there is nothing better, you will always have an escape route with like f4 and e5. Yeah, maybe there is some calculation involved here, but is it so difficult? I don't know. And also you can use the stepping stones, right? So once you calculate somewhere until here, by the way, you don't have to go bishop c7, you can go bishop b6 and then just take the pawn on d6. You didn't even have to go for like immediate action. Maybe this is even stronger. It definitely looks much stronger because you're keeping the bishop more active and the rook actually infiltrates. In any case, the whole point was actually to spot that d6 is weak and to spot the way to take advantage of this weakness, which is by eliminating the queen, which is the only defender of the weak pawn. And also very important not to allow black to consolidate. So knight d7 is the actual threat. It's not that the bishop is under attack, but black is threatening to bring the knight to f6 or to c5 and later on play rook d8. And if that happens, well, it will be difficult to convert this into a full point. Yes, white has a long-term edge, but we're not interested in the long-term edge. We're interested in winning the pawn right away so that black doesn't get anything. I'm wondering if you're going to be able to use that concept in today's tactical challenge. Identifying the weakness.
Possibly.
Yeah.
There are some tactics that are based around identifying weaknesses.
No, probably you will.
Different methods of punishing them generally in the.
That's true. That's true. If you're supposed to win a pawn, not the queen, agreed, or give checkmate. Good. I have nothing smarter than that to say today. I think this is a good summary of our strategic training session for today. Chess Dojo would know, right? Okay, so you have what? 2 hours, 20 minutes to rest before the competition.
Yep.
I will join for a moment. And I will definitely be rooting for you guys, but still no pressure. I will be just one of those other spectators trying to solve the puzzles on my own, so no worries.
Go team.
Yeah. Good. So chat, we will be having a joint session tomorrow with Ty and Seth. Timing yet to be determined, I guess. We don't know, but probably something maybe around that time. Guys, how do you feel about that? Or maybe later, slightly later even.
Around what time?
Like right now it's almost 8 p.m. Poland. Maybe slightly later. We'll figure it out.
Slightly later. Noon my time is really good for me, which would be 9 p.m. Poland,
Yeah.
because that's when my baby goes down for the nap. So
Okay.
that way I'm not.
Set is also okay with that. So around that would be good. Okay, we'll figure it out. Good guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for surviving the tactical torture, Ty. You know, there was never an emergency. It was really good. And good luck. Good luck in the tactical challenge. I will keep my fingers crossed for both of you guys. Good. Thanks a lot, chat. Thanks a lot, Raiders, for watching, for staying so long. And take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Should we get a raid, by the way? Is Dojo still streaming? Should we have a, like, return the favor? Is it possible? Riders, any specific place in the internet you want to go?
It's like another Sensei lesson is currently live.
Oh, really? I just clicked to write hashtag chess. I don't know. This was the first. You know, she was first on my pop-up list, so I don't know. In any case, thanks again, and I'll see you guys tomorrow and today at Chess Dojo.